I'll call the meeting to order.
Hold on, Ann. Yeah, there you go. Hold on, Ann. Okay, we're good. Go ahead.
I'll call the meeting to order for the Curriculum Committee.
All right, today is February 22nd. It is 3 p.m. We really only have one item on the agenda today, and that is to review the K-8 scope and sequence, the unit sample and lesson sample. And that's really why Kristen and Eric are here. I did invite admin. I know Rich is still with students. Mary Kay is joining now. But I am going to mute myself. And Chris and Erica, do you want to share your screen? Do you, either one wants to go first? What do you want to share?
You just let us know what you want us to do, and we'll go for it.
Rock, paper, scissors, ladies.
Doesn't matter to me.
All right, B is in first in the alphabet for Bouchard. You're up.
All right, hold on. I can't share.
Should be good.
Okay. So I will start with grade 1 scope and sequence and the full lesson plan, if that's all right. So here is units 1, overview, scope and sequence. So all the grade levels have not been converted over to this look yet, but their sequence is done. So I'll walk through, and as the units are officially edited, the instructional time will be filled in as that is done. But it has the big ideas. It has just notes for the teachers just to keep in mind, and then the connecting standards. So please stop and ask questions along the way of anything I'm kind of going over too fast. And then at the very bottom, I will continue to link out other resources for teachers to pull from. And when IM releases all the material, I'll link that in here as additional stuff. So a full lesson, our full unit for grade 1 will look like this, which I believe the teachers will like more because everything is all in one document and just hyperlinked inside. Again, it starts with all the standards that this unit will be working on, including the mathematical practices. Teacher resources, which we have worked with most of these. A lot of PD has already been put into a lot of these resources. We have the beginning of the year assessment, a check-in, and then the post-assessment I did not do or link for the reason I would rather work with the teachers to build this, because in order to write the assessment, they would really have to know the whole entire unit in and out. So we would work as a team to build a unit. Do you want to see anything in here for assessment wise, or I'm going to keep going? I'll keep going.
So Erica, all of the things that you have linked there, articles, whatever the videos are, those are for them to, some of them are for to use while they're teaching, and some of them are just background knowledge to teach. Is it both?
Correct. It's a mixture of both. So these videos are just kind of background knowledge of how how kids learn numbers. So it starts with kindergarten or actually preschool and kind of goes all the way through to 4th grade, how their number sense is built. So all our current teachers have seen these videos. So I've done PD around them. And then our math workshop book, we spent on that whole couple of PD days working on that.
Yep. And that was one of the things we said. And we get a new teacher coming in, we want them to be able to access the material and see how to do it. So there's some information there. Okay, thank you.
Correct. Yep. I put in some misconceptions just for teachers to be aware of, especially more so new teachers. And then kind of broke apart what the math lesson should look like, the regular lesson itself, the little mini lesson every single day, the use of centers, which we've spent a lot of time working on, just daily routines, the calendar, shapes, and underlying things that teachers, you see a lot with on their bulletin boards with the numbers, especially more so in K and 1. The math talks, again, so we spent a lot of time in district working on, and then building back in that fluency. So they'll have a fluency folder by the time this is launched. And then it has the whole lesson plan overview. So all the links to the lesson, which are all in this document, how many days it's going to take them, the description of what's going on, and any additional information they need to know. So for example, if they read through all this, the data section, this can be taught at any point. So if they know they're going to be out one day, this might be a lesson they might want to put in as opposed to a heavy meatier lesson. So teachers know that they can kind of move these 3 lessons around throughout the unit. They don't need to be at the very end. So some flexibility within the units. So these are all hyperlinked within this document. I added in student learning targets, and they are inside every single lesson plan. So these are the learning targets that the students are working on this unit to kind of remind teachers of what they're focusing on. And you'll see them as we work through a lesson. So all lessons are built the same. This one's a little heavier on the number talk, more so for any new teacher coming onto the team so they understand what's going on. Any links are on the side that they might need. The kind of overview, like mini objective, is listed on the side. They're looking at number talks with subitizing. We're talking about combinations of 5, which was a kindergarten concept. So kind of just letting them know what they're working on. Did you want to read through this, or should I just keep going? Keep going. Okay.
Yeah, keep going.
All right.
No.
So this is just all information, just things. So most veteran teachers have done number talks and don't need this reminder. This is really just, this wording is for anyone new coming into the grade level, but it's also a good reminder. Then we kind of build into the centers. Again, what we're working on, combination of 5, which was mentioned before, that's a review of K-scale, which connects to those standards in 1st grade. The links to any materials that they need for this activity is linked in. Their closing of their unit. And then I linked in where these actually came from, where I pulled this all from. So some of this is material that they're already using. And some of it I'm pulling from Kendall Hunt, the IM program. So I do have their full lesson. So I will link these on the bottom. So if they want to go back to the main page where this was pulled from and modified, they can see that original lesson if they're looking for any information. And then at the bottom, as part of the teacher reflection, just to say, hey, did I see my kids doing these learning targets, which are connected to those standards? And then all the lessons that follow are in the same kind of order. So anything that they need to linked in is in there. There's guiding questions, and then their reflection or closure. And sample of work or expectations are put in as available. There are questions so far?
So Erica, talk for a minute about autonomy. So you've scripted this out. This is pretty much, they can follow this day by day. Everything's there for them. We have a veteran teacher who's pretty confident in teaching some of these things. Where can they stray? Where do they have the ability to stray? Where can they pull their own? And what do they look at? Are they looking at just that lesson and saying, hey, I'm targeting right there, where's the operation, whatever you're targeting, they can pick from there?
Correct. So say a veteran teacher has done the adding with intent and they have something that's similar to this, you definitely can modify it to either meet your students' needs or what you've done that's very similar to fill in. Because I think you kind of do need some teacher choice. We all have our craft, and maybe you don't want to roll it out this exact way. You have a different way you want to roll it out. So as long as you are hitting these standards still, which is why I did build in, like, this is what we're working on. Are they working on that? Correct. And just like the number talk, I mean, these are suggested, but it's all right if you do something slightly different that's hitting the same thing. because they have other resources. They may have their own order they're already using, and if it's working, no need to rock the boat. But for newbies or someone new to district, this might help guide them until they come up with their own working pattern. And there are some extension materials as the unit kind of goes on for those who do need that challenge.
Can you show me that? That's what was my next question.
It's just kind of like
It's
using
woven
larger
through.
numbers.
Okay.
Huh? Yeah.
It's woven throughout. I see it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Erica, most students in the system get used to this system. If not that we have very many new students coming in, but if a new student comes in, are they cognizant of this? Can they adapt to this program that we have here?
Most students can adapt, yeah. So if someone brand new came in, it does start with kindergarten standards. So most students should have the same knowledge base walking into first grade, because we do begin with combinations of 5, and that was a skill for kindergarten.
Okay.
Yep.
Anne, any questions, thoughts?
I was thinking in response to Herb's question, if they're coming from a school in Connecticut, they're following the same standards. So like you said, Erica, it is likely they've had it. And even out of state, are the Common Core Connecticut state standards similar? So that would be true of out of state also?
Correct. Most people are following Common Core, and if they're not, they've adopted their own version, which is very similar to Common Core.
Okay, thank you. No, I think it looks great. It's very complete. I just can't imagine doing this for every grade.
So it's very time consuming. It took me longer than I thought. So it's going to go a little slower than originally planned.
It's very complete though, Erica. It looks wonderful.
So yeah, I wanted it to be more user teacher friendly. Like there's no doubt where you need to be or where you need to follow. And then there is a teacher flexibility. And again, here's the links to where it was kind of pulled from and modified. So they can go back and see everything written out from the original producer of it if they wanted it. I try to highlight the very important things like prep work. Like if we're not going to just pull some materials out and just go, like you're going to have to do some prep work. So I try to highlight that for teachers because that's very useful.
Mm.
Sorry, like gonna move things around.
Erica, how much of this have you done so far?
So this is my one complete unit I have right now. On this page right here, so our unit 2, the organizing and collecting, is actually a book we purchased a while ago. When I don't believe it was done this year because it is, the kids are interacting together and our hands-on sharing material. So I'm sure this was completely cut out this year. Hopefully it comes back in, and it's a great way of working with measurement and data. So this is like already written out. So now unit 1.2 is already done. And then I'll go on to unit 3. So it's kind of slow going. Is there something I'm missing?
No, sorry. Tracy, any questions, comments, or thoughts?
No, I think it looks great. I wonder where you were when I was doing student teaching a long time ago and didn't really have my curriculum to look at. Didn't really, did it? No, it looks really good. I think you've covered all of the bases. If there's anything we can do to help you, I know it's kind of probably harder, but like Ann said, if there's some things that we can do that would make some of this easier.
Thank you. If I can think of anything I can share out, I will definitely let you know. I think one of my biggest concerns is that IM hasn't released it, and I am pulling from IM. So I think my plan to finish this will be everyone's unit 1s, because unit 1 has been released. And I really want to integrate it authentically and not go back later on and add other material, if that makes sense.
Again, was that for elementary, you mean?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. Right, so your approval process really would be kind of 8th grade backwards. Those are the easier ones because you have, right? Is that
Correct. I guess that would be easy. I'm just going to be filling in a document.
any other questions for Erica? That's a lot of work, Erica, I know.
Yeah.
We'll be able to have another conversation about timelines soon now.
Yeah, that should be a good conversation.
All right, Kristen, you want to share?
Sure. All right. I have a few documents. Give me a second here.
Tracy, I'm going to mute you because I'm not sure if it's yours. Kristen, can you say something?
Yeah.
All right, you're muffled too. I don't know if you have something in front of your microphone or on your computer.
I don't think so.
Okay,
Am I muffled for other people? Or
you're okay. Just
anybody
make
else
sure.
hear me? All right. So what I'll show you, I mean, this is a draft. We're kind of taking a sharp turn with, I mean, even though we will be using our readers and writers workshop and phonics workshop materials, we are taking a sharp turn and we're incorporating structured literacy and the science of reading into this, which so I've had to make a very big change. So this is a draft. And this is kind of the beginning of a movement, a science of reading movement. But again, we're using, like I said last time, using the Readers and Writers Workshop manuals. They provide the structure for the engagement, but I had to do a lot of work in incorporating a lot of the more the skills that the brass tacks, I think that's what I was calling it last time. There are definitely some holes in the Readers and Writers Workshop as far as foundational skills. So that's what I've been working really hard on, is going through all of the units, kindergarten through 8th grade, and infusing those real foundational skills that I feel, even just looking at our assessment data and then being in classrooms, the foundational skills that I feel our kids really still need and they're not getting from the Readers and Writers Workshop and the phonics workshop. So anyway, this is, there are 4 different curriculums, I guess you could call it. There's the phonological awareness curriculum that goes K through 3. This is the word reading and spelling curriculum scope and sequence. There's also a reading comprehension scope and sequence and a writing scope and sequence. I'm just going through the word reading and spelling today. So this is kindergarten through 8th grade. Again, this is a draft. I haven't even completed a lot of these units yet. But as you can see, let me make sure I can see this whole thing. I'm trying to move this. Let me just give me 1 second. Okay. So what you'll see here is these are the skills for each grade level for word reading and spelling. And it starts at consonant letter names and letter sounds, short vowel letter names, letter sounds in kindergarten. And it brings you all the way to 8th grade where they're working with Greek and Latin roots. I'm in mathematics, science, and social studies. So there's quite a progression there. So I don't know if you wanted me to go through the scope and sequence. I think you just wanted a sample of what a scope and sequence would look like.
Is that vertical, Kristen? So if I'm looking at grade 4, is that person teaching possessives and plurals and then abbreviations and then, or is it not necessarily building upon each other?
It's definitely vertical, but it's not easy to show that because it's not like you can take consonant letter sounds and short vowel sounds and then like build on that. What does that look like in 1st grade? It doesn't really work like that.
Right. It doesn't go across is the point, right?
Right. It doesn't go across, but it is so you would start in kindergarten with consonant letter names and letter sounds. And then if you scroll down, 2 consonant blends would be at the end of kindergarten. So, and then when you go back up to 1st grade, they're starting with vowels. After they review some kindergarten skills, they're starting with vowel consonant E. So the way that the scope and sequence works, it's just a sequence of skills for each grade level, starting from the top to the bottom.
Yep.
And this is a draft. So this, we had said that we wanted to, I didn't have any scope and sequence like this. So this is what we asked for. And I just tried to put something together that just shows everything in word learning and spelling that our students will be learning in Wellington, starting in kindergarten, ending in 8th grade. Did you want to go through that in any other detail, or?
I'm all set. I mean, I mean, that's what we want to see. We can see all of the skills, right? The idea was for us to see all the skills,
Yeah.
you know, K through 8 on one page for
Yes.
this specific scope and sequence. And I mean, we see that. And I think, you know, this will be spelled, no pun intended, this will be spelled out more when you share the lessons, right, that are connected to it. So
Yes.
if I'm just looking at, you know, visually, if I'm going to make the vertical lines between grade levels bold, that's going to separate out, because it doesn't go from consonant letter names, letter sounds to vowel consonant E in 1st grade to, it's really all the skills in kindergarten. It's not necessarily building on one another. It's all the skills taken as one grade level and moving to the next grade level, moving to the next grade level.
They do build on each other. They build like this, like down, and then you go,
Correct.
you know, then you go up to the top of 1st grade and you work your way down, and then you go up to 2nd grade and it's like this.
Right.
So, and those are all just those are the skills that they'll be learning. Those are the skills that each grade level is responsible for. And they do build on one another, of course, like I mean, it's basically builds from the second they walk into kindergarten and then to the very end of 8th grade. It's like, that's basically, I mean, you could probably take this and stack it all on top of each other, if that makes sense.
When,
does.
Kristen, when Phil asked the question before about vertical, do the boxes have to do with standards, or is that just a sequence thing going from top to bottom, but there's no relationship between the ones that are on the top row?
Well, standards are very vague for foundational skills. So you can't go into the
Okay.
Common Core, and this is not from the Common Core. Like, I mean, it basically just says, like, I would have to look at it to remember exactly what it says, but the foundational skills piece in the Common Core is definitely the weakest. So you can't open up the Common Core and teach from that for foundational skills. You could for writing, you could for reading comprehension, but anything foundational skills piece, it's been criticized quite a bit for being very, very weak. So that's why I chose this to work on first, because it's probably I think it's the most important. It's where our kids are struggling the most, and it's in the Common Core doesn't support us enough.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Now that's very complete. Very interesting. And then the spelling and the reading are parallel. So you're teaching the spelling as you're teaching the reading?
Yes.
Yeah, that's great. The same skill. Yeah, that's excellent.
Okay, and then as far as like there is another, I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time with, I gotta move this toolbar. I'm trying to the one document I'm trying to get is, there it is. Okay. So also, like, a kindergarten will have its own more specific scope and sequence also. So that's the overall scope and sequence. And then I'm just going to scroll down. This is still also a draft, but here's the kindergarten word reading, fluency, and spelling scope and sequence. It takes you through each month. Like, so this is the letter names and letter sounds are in September. So in that scope and sequence that you just saw, it just had a list. But then you'll see for kindergarten, if you're a kindergarten teacher, you can go into this and say, okay, this is what I'm teaching in September. These are the skills I'm teaching in October. These are the skills I'm teaching in November and December. And you scroll down and it takes you through May. So what was here was just the list, but it doesn't tell you anything because I just needed to put that all in one place on one page. You can print it out and you can look across and see what skills all Wellington kids need to know K-8. And then you can go into the kindergarten page and you can see more specifically month by month and how these skills, like which consonant digraphs, what is the floss pattern, what order are you teaching the consonant letter names and letter sounds and the vowels. So that's more, but on the main page, it just basically throws out all the different skills that need to be taught from the very beginning of kindergarten to the end of 8th grade. If that makes sense.
It does. Can you go back to the kindergarten page again?
Yes.
So basically everything in that vertical column on the last document is now spelled out on here. And this is the scope and sequence for all those skills
Yes.
that are here and what they're doing. Okay.
Yes, and I'm going to fill this in more. This is, a lot of this is really what is in the, this is based off of the first, well, at least it's based off of units that look like this. There's five of these. And so this scope and sequence is based off of the skills, what I have in here, that's in here, but I'm adding a lot more from other resources.
When you say in here, you're talking about the phonics portion of the Readers and Writers Workshop.
Yeah, so this is what this book is, the first unit, and there's 5 of these for phonics, and this is like the backbone of our curriculum, but it's not enough, and I'm filling in the pieces that are missing. So that's been the big project this year, is to fill the pieces that are missing, and then figure out how to make that work in a curriculum document without one copying and copyright using just trying to put it in like our own words, but at the same time it's not stuff that I'm just inventing. I'm pulling the highest quality resources and putting them together to kind of almost like make like a super curriculum, if that makes sense.
Well, and that's what the phonics, that's what the reading workshop model was missing, right? Was the phonics. They came out with a phonics program within the last couple of years.
Yes, and they did, and what the phonics program for Readers and Writers Workshop brought, which is great, which I love and I want to keep, is the you'll see in the first unit, because I'll show you that in a second. It brings the context and it brings the engagement, but it might not it's not complete enough with skills. But I can show you that, because the unit that I'm showing is the very first kindergarten unit of the year.
Okay.
All right. So any other questions on that? All right, so I'm just gonna go, so what I'm going to show you is this piece right here. This unit is the very, very beginning of this scope and sequence. So the consonant letter names, consonant letter sounds, short vowel letter names, and letter sounds. And so when the kindergarten teacher starts the school year, this is their first unit. This is the first one that I've done. Like I said, this is the first time I'm taking the unit, assessing what it is that it has and what it still needs. So in this unit, they're just learning. I just copied and pasted the piece of the scope and sequence. All they're doing in this unit is, in the very first month of kindergarten, they're recognizing and forming. Sorry, I already saw a typo. Forming all uppercase lowercase letters, and also identifying and articulating the primary sounds for all of these letters. And this is the approximate order that they should be taught, and that's what the recommended order from Teachers College. And I also looked through other different recommended sequences, and they're all pretty much the same. And then it starts with a unit description. So in the first paragraph, it basically goes through an overview of the actual, like this unit, Making Friends with Letters, what it's all about. What I do like about the phonics workshop is it starts kids with something that's really important to them. It starts with teaching kids letters, names, and letter sounds through their names, and the names of the people in their class, and the names of their teachers, and the names of book characters. And then there's a mascot named Mabel, who becomes their mascot for everything for the entire year. So you first start with the letter M for Mabel, and then if there's kids with a letter M in your class, you start with them, and you go through all the different names of the kids in your class. And that's how you're learning. You're initially learning the letter names and letter sounds. It's grounded in that kind of something that's really important to kids. And a lot of programs just have the skills, and there's not a context. And that's what I do like about workshop. There's a context that's important to kids. It's not just skills. We're just learning about the alphabet today. So the first paragraph goes through basically what is in the unit of study that every teacher has, that book that I just showed you, which is it's a kind of summary of that. The second paragraph talks about what you'll see is what the revisions are. And you'll see what the revisions are in a moment. The third paragraph talks about what your students, so this is just the word learning, but like the word reading and spelling portion. what other language arts things are going on throughout the day. So it tells about how there's also phonological awareness happening at another part of the day. There's writing happening at the another part of the day. There's reading happening at another part of the day. And reminding them there's additional resources that you can integrate, that you can use for differentiated instruction, for planning center activities, for providing support during learning lab, or increasing the academic experience during free play, and also integrating into your science and social studies. So that's just to let them know that those are, just remember those things are also going on today. And then the last paragraph is just a little research. Complete letter knowledge is essential for reading success. Knowledge of letters, shapes, names, and phonemes they represent provide students with a solid foundation for using the alphabetic principle and learning to read. And this unit will begin to build the foundation for accurate and automatic word learning in kindergarten and beyond. That's just that's a 4-paragraph overview. Then you go to the unit plan. So it starts with the enduring understandings and essential questions. Those did not come from the unit. I just took the unit and then I came up with essential questions and enduring understandings that would fit with the unit. The goals of the unit. And then the primary resource is the Making Friends with Letters, which I've shown you a bunch of times already. And there are also additional resources that I mentioned in the paragraph above that can be weaved in. And also it says interdisciplinary links would be like the Haggerty Phonemic Awareness Kindergarten Curriculum. That's also happening at the same time. The units of study teaching reading is happening at the same time. And the units of studying, teaching, writing is also happening at the same time. The main evidence for learning is the letter name, letter sound assessment from Easy CBM. So that just takes you right to that website. That's the main thing that we want our kids to be able to do, is name the letters and name their sounds accurately and efficiently. And that assessment that's the main assessment for that. I find in kindergarten, we end up with a lot of assessments, like too many. And kindergarten teachers are spending a lot of time on assessments. I'm hoping that maybe we can streamline those a little bit. And so that very first unit, that first month, really focus on letter names and letter sounds. They also have phonemic awareness going on. There's assessments with that too. So I'm trying to keep the assessments simple. And also in this unit plan, it's professional development links. There's I found some really great videos on, there's an alphabet knowledge informational video where there's this Pennsylvania's teacher training center that has all these free resources. So they did a nice short video on just the importance of alphabet knowledge, how to teach it, and then just some quick instructional tips and ideas on how to teach alphabet knowledge. And then I'd also like for us, as part of our professional development, we're going to be moving away from word walls and using sound walls. So there's a couple of, there's a short informational video about what a sound wall is and how to use it in your classroom. And then there's also a longer webinar. So that wouldn't be something I would just push on to teachers. That would be something that we would work on together if we could look at it together, and something that we would put together as a team.
Kristen, the resources section there, the primary resources. So you just have it in there. They know where to go from that point, and they have access to all of those resources. So we have the foundations, we have the words their way. If it's a website, it brings them right to the website. But we have all those resources available. It's nothing we have to buy. It's just
right.
The teacher can access.
Yeah. So most of the things the teachers already have, and then some of those things maybe a couple of things they might not have the words their way activities for emergent spellers. Like I have tons of extras of those sitting on a shelf, and so if they wanted something, or then I could give those to them. But most of those things they have access to themselves. And like I said, a lot of those things could be used during for differentiation, during learning lab, and other centers, other parts of their day. And then this is the breakdown of the different lessons. Each lesson should take about a day. I didn't specify that. Maybe I should, but each lesson takes about a day. For the most part, I listed them out because session 1 fits with this. You open it up, session 1, and it goes through, it spells out exactly what you need to do in absolutely ridiculous detail beyond what you actually need. So that's been the complaint about the Readers and Writers Workshop manuals. It's like, it's too much information. Like, just like get to the point, Lucy. So session 1 is, I would recommend you just go right in with session 1. You don't need to make any changes to it. Teach it exactly the way it is. So it says here, session 1, I put the enduring understanding just so it matches with the unit plan, and just so the teacher has an idea of really what the child needs to know and be able to do or understand as they're, by the end of that unit. So they just have to know that letters and sounds make the names and words that we read and write. So they're learning about names, and they have to know that there's letters and there's sounds and names, and that's how they're going to start learning letters and sounds. So then it tells you just to go to page 2, Units of Study in Phonics, page 2. Session 2, you go to Unit Study in Phonics, page 8. And then session 3 is where I have a revised lesson. And I just, in the paragraph above, I talk about what that revised lesson is, because there is a very specific, and they have an anchor chart for it in the Making Friends with Letters book. There's a very specific sequence that they go through to teach a letter. And that's what I felt really needed to be revised. I can go into detail about that or not, but I mean, it's the way they teach it. There's, in some cases, there's too much of something and not enough of something else. So I took out what was too much and put in what they were missing, what was missing, and wrote a new lesson, which you'll see what that is in a second. But then as it goes on, as this unit goes on, it basically goes through each letter of the alphabet. So you're going to need to have that revised lesson in your back pocket, because you're going to keep following that sequence for teaching the letter name and the letter sound each time. You're not going to do it exactly the way they're saying in here. That's where I find there's a weakness. So that revised lesson is going to be really useful, and teachers are going to need to, we're going to need to talk about that before just handing that to them. That's something that, even though it's explained in the paragraph above, it is something that teachers who have already been teaching this need to be alerted to. It would probably be easier for a brand new teacher just walking in, but a teacher who's been teaching Making Friends with Letters already for a couple of years we would have to have a discussion about the reason why. And there's way too much in this book as far as like some like sessions 8 through 14 go. There's just I just don't feel necessary. It's a lot of, it's fluff. So I pulled out the fluff in sessions 8 through 14. And then session 15 was pretty good. And then session 16 through 17 was another just fluff. So we're deleting that. The thing I'm thinking, I do feel like I do need to explain that somewhere in more detail of why those things are deleted. I think I left that part out. So that's something that when I go back and revise, I will explain why these lessons were deleted. Are there any questions right now? And then the last part, this is a sample lesson. So, and this is actually the only lesson that I had to write for this was the revised lesson. So it includes the enduring understanding for this particular lesson and the essential question for this particular lesson. How do we learn about letters and sounds? The objective, which is the same objective you'd see a lot. The resources that the teachers would use, they're using their manual, Making Friends with Letters, and then I inserted a piece from something called Tools for Reading. What we don't do enough with, this is something that speech and language teachers do quite a bit, but we don't do enough in the regular classroom, is teaching kids about the articulation of letters, of sounds. So for them to be able to play with the sound and feel how how it works in their mouth and in their throat. That's really important. That's a really important multi-sensory kind of teaching that we have not been doing. It's really been mostly in special ed and speech and language. And the science has shown that that's really something that is meaningful for all kids.
So Kristen, I just want to interrupt you for a second. So your point is, can you scroll back up?
Where would you like me to scroll up
To the page before it. So anywhere you have inserted a revised lesson into the workshop books, they have all the sessions in them. But if you needed more, or we needed to eliminate something, you're doing it on this page. And then if there's a revised lesson, that's what's down below. And then and the point is, you're speaking to the holes of the program, and that's where inserting the science.
Yes.
That's kind of the high level picture that I think is important for this committee to
Yeah.
make sure we understand. That's what you've done, correct?
Yeah, so what I've done with the learning letter sound sequences, they teach the formation in a weird order. So I start the formation a little later, and they don't do enough with teaching the sounds. So
Okay.
less on formation, more on sound, and then they're really working in the beginning stages with letter tiles and not learning how to form the letters yet, just for like a few days.
Again, the point is not necessarily about the skill for us.
Mhm.
The point is the hole is being filled
Yes.
with the science on
Yes.
based upon science. That's your point.
Yes. Yes. So, and these units are, you can't say that there's definitely things that you can connect to the science, but that's not like, then when they were written, it wasn't written with the science. I wouldn't say it wasn't written with the science of reading in mind, but I mean, there's this, it's almost like there's two camps right now. There's the scientists, and then there's the balanced literacy people, and it's the reading wars are like they're more alive and well than they've ever been. It's really something. It's an interesting field to be in right now. So anyway, yeah, so this is the lesson. So the resources, making friends with letters, and that's the tools for reading is adding that whole that's articulation sound piece. The
I
materials.
don't think you need to go through all that. I really don't.
Okay.
I think that they just needed to see the structure. So you basically have taken that down now, and that's what kind of my point was. You've taken it down to show what that adjustment was based upon the science, and you can see what you've added in here in the sequence of learning events with the resources. I mean, I don't know if anybody needs to get the detail of this specific lesson. I think for us, again, it's the how are you doing it? And so the whole idea, Erica's kind of had to build hers because there was no workshop model written that we follow the program, unless it's IM.
I had to take it apart. So it's almost like I take something and I'm pulling it apart and making something else.
Right. Your core is the workshop model books,
Right.
which is where you're referencing it. But again, big picture for us is you're inserting the science piece where you don't,
It's missing, and we can
right.
see that it's missing in our students' performance.
Okay. Questions from anybody else about just the overall layout, what it looks like and how she's doing it? Kristen, how many of these adjustments, are there lots of them? There are, okay.
I have a
Is it,
lot to do.
if you scroll up, this is one unit.
It's a month.
A month. Okay, so
For
thanks. So
1/4 of language arts.
okay, so in this unit in particular, there's only one revised lesson. Is that about what you expect? You expect to see 1, 2, 3 revised lessons per unit of instruction? Are there certain grade levels? My feeling is I would expect, because we're talking about the science of reading, that on the K1 side, you would see more of these revised lessons and less as we go up through the grades. Is that accurate?
There's no after second grade, I have to create.
Okay.
So everything that's in that scope and sequence, even though I have resources, not like I'm just like, I have resources, I just have to, it might be easier, to be honest, with grades 3 through 8, because I'm already using materials that are, I mean, I'm already using materials that are, I don't have to insert the material. I'm using the materials that I would insert into a lesson. So it's just easier. I don't have to take something apart and then build it back up. It's just basically.
And you're only referring to the word reading spelling curriculum.
Yeah.
Because the K2 Readers Workshop Phonics program is only K2.
Yes. And so
then you're going to use the other resources. Gotcha.
We haven't had anything for 3 through 8 in a very long time. So basically it's been well, I wouldn't say that. We were using Words Their Way in grades 3 and 4. for a period of time. And then we weren't.
Okay.
So this is, so we haven't, we've had, so, but we haven't had something grades 5 through 8. And I do think that's really important because there's a lot of skills that kids are not really, some technical spelling and reading skills that kids are not just going to learn, they have to be taught, and they're important for their further learning.
So I think it was important for this group, and Tracy, Ann, and Herb, I think you need to make sure before these ladies keep cranking. The idea here for us was, can we get a snapshot of a scope and sequence? Can we get a picture of a unit, and what is, if there's a lesson needs to be inserted, what does it look like? And could we take this, could somebody new come in, a new teacher come in, and do they have the information at their fingertips more than what we have now? And what we have now is basically the Common Core, and then they are driving the ship from there. They do have for language arts, they have the Readers and Writers Workshop manuals, but we're making now instructional and curricular decisions based upon the science and the standards and what resources we want to use as prime. Kind of our what are we seeing as critical. Do you feel like the layout for the three of you is clear? Is it what you're looking for moving forward?
I find the scope and sequence that we're looking at right now, where you see everything kindergarten through 8th grade, is very helpful. And that's the word reading and the spelling. And even as a teacher, I would know where I needed to go, where I needed to, focus, and then the lessons are good too, that kind of follow through in the units. So I think those, to me, that's a huge piece, that overview, scope and sequence. So Kristen, down the road, will you be doing that for the other, is it 3 other areas of language arts?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And then Erica, do we have something like that for math, or is math just too big to fit into something like that?
I have not built one. There are Common Core ones already built and out there.
Okay.
If we want one in district, I can pull one and kind of modify it to be similar.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Common Core ones for math are better, and they were written. They did not, and this is, I think, Kristen, was your point earlier, right? I don't think they spelled this out as well for spelling and word reading.
Right.
They
You
may
can't
have
use
for
the
reading.
Common Core for this.
They did for
Can't
word.
do it.
Would you say they did for reading comprehension though?
It's, yeah, definitely a lot better.
Yeah, I think this, and I think I'm not the expert on this, but I know enough to be dangerous, is that this is where the hole was and needed to be spelled out more in Common Core. But when we start talking about reading comprehension,
Yep.
It's a little clearer about what those specific skills are by grade level,
Mm-hmm.
but not in this specific area.
Yeah, and I just think, when you think about the curriculum of the town, this right here says what will happen in language arts, and all the units are great and the lessons are great. But I think I think of Elena and her questions, what will the children be learning? I think this would answer, and Herb, see if you agree with me. This might answer that question. Or I don't know, that's my thought. To me, that really speaks to me as to what's happening K-8 in a subject area.
And that's a parent question, right?
Yes.
Parents want to know on curriculum night, what are my kids going to learn this year in first grade?
Mm-hmm.
Here it is. These are
Yeah.
the skills. It doesn't say how we're teaching it, but these are the skills you're going to learn. And do the teachers have the units to be able to teach those things? And the answer will be yes, right?
Mm-hmm. So I think they both look great. I think you guys have done a great job. And boy, you're climbing a hill.
A lot of work.
So it's great. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Tracy, did you have any thoughts? Let me see if I asked to unmute you. I'll see if that helps.
Thank you. Yeah, this is my school computer and I can't figure out how to do it. I tried lots of buttons. No, I think it looks great, and I think it's very clear what skills we are expecting and when we're expecting to see them. Which I agree with Ann is what the teachers need, but also anyone who went into the curriculum on on our website for Board of Ed in town could look at that and clearly understand what is being expected of our kids to learn, and then teachers to teach throughout their whole career. So I appreciate all the effort that it took to make that it look like this, and then I really like the lessons because I think that would be very for a teacher, new or veteran, to be able to go in and say, this is what I need to do.
Herb, any questions or thoughts? You're muted, Herb.
Very impressed with the presentation. It gave me a pretty good understanding. I like the format. I like the way it's laid out, and the way the lessons are introduced all the way through. Very clear. The only thing I have in mind is I wasn't quite clear on the assessment. I can see the standards and the goals and the practices that are implemented and all of that, but what is the assessment part of this, and how do we determine how much the students have learned under this format?
Is that for both math and language arts? Or are you asking just for? I can answer for language arts. Is that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So, I mean, for this, the assessments, and I'm sure this is, I saw this in Erica's too, it's embedded in the actual unit or lesson. So
I can't read it on my computer. Really.
No, that's I'll show you where you'd find it. So in the unit plan, this is evidence of learning. So there's the assessment. This is a short kindergarten unit just for letter names and letter sounds. So right here, you go to this, just go to this website, you open it up, and you sign in. And then it'll show you like there's a letter name and letter sound assessment. So the teacher would, not loading, but the teacher would print off a page for letter names, a page for letter sounds, would assess how they're doing with their letter names and their letter sounds. And then they would have, and if the student's didn't do well in the assessment, then they have an opportunity to progress monitor, because there's progress monitoring embedded in this. I don't know if you wanted to see that, but so that would be like letter names, and that's what, just loading very slowly.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to open it, but it's just sitting there. Not doing anything. So I'm trying.
We also have, oh, sorry, Kristen, go ahead.
Right. There it is. So it's just a simple, or the student just reads off the letter names, and then the letter sounds the same, and then there's 10 of them, so you can keep progress monitoring. That's just for the first unit, and then there's other assessments for every unit.
These are the formative assessments. This is what you're looking at to drive your instruction. This is what you're going to make your groups out of, if you have any groups, if you're going to do anything in learning lab, or right. I mean, this is where you're going to get the information from.
And teachers would collect their own information as well, but this is the assessment that everyone is using. This is the assessment that you bring to data team. This is, and talk about progress. You bring in the other information to fill it in, but this is like the main thing.
And this is a simple one for kindergarten.
Yeah.
Right. It's just the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the other grade levels, I mean, it could be fluency, it could be a list of words.
Kristen, does this program assess at all the different grade levels too? They
Yeah,
have- Oh, cool. Okay.
so just, yeah, this, obviously the skills change as the grade level changes.
Mhm. That's great.
Yeah.
And it's free.
And does it record keep too as it goes along?
We have, my account doesn't, but we do have one account in the district that can do that. So, we can do that.
Mhm.
But we usually just keep the information on a spreadsheet that has all the information on it.
Mhm.
So
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
did I answer that for you too, Erica, would you say? Right, was it similar, or did you want about assessment?
No, yeah, it is pretty similar. I do have like a screener to launch in to test previous skills. So I had like do they have the skills coming into this, which would kind of form your learning led groups. There's like a mid check. Teachers can do their own checks along the way, and then there'll be more of a summative at the end.
Herb, what we found, and goes back to my principal days, is that we spent too much time doing more summative assessments and not enough time doing formative assessments that would give you the information that you can make, changes as you were teaching, as opposed to we get to the end of the unit and we find out that 8 kids out of the 18 kids in the classroom didn't get it.
Yeah.
We want to know that earlier, and so that's where they're going to use more of these formative assessments. We still have our big district assessments, more of some of the summative things, and this is one piece, but we'll be using iReady as one of our kind of big ticket check-ins to see where kids are at, and it's tied to standards, but it's not something necessarily you're going to be. It's a check-in. It's not necessarily where you're going to be building your groups from.
So you'll be checking early on then at each step of the way.
Correct.
Yeah.
And Erica, was that your point earlier, that those are some of the things that we're going to want to build as we go?
Correct. Yep. I have more teacher voice in those.
Mhm. Okay.
All right, any other, Kristen, you can stop sharing if you want. For any other questions, comments? Do we just let them fly now and give them 28 hours a day instead of 24 hours in a day?
28?
28. It's the new.
Yeah.
Mary Kay, do you have any questions? She says no. You're muted, Mary Kay.
So do you both feel you're on a good path and ready to go with it? Yeah. And Erica, with your teaching full time, is there time to do it?
Mhm.
Not really. No.
Yeah. So yeah, I think, the elephant in the room, we have to make sure that Erica has what she needs to do it. And Kristen too, if there's,
I feel like there's flexibility in my schedule, and I schedule it in to work on it, but then something happens that day and that doesn't happen. That's pretty much how it's been going.
I was going to say something similar, and I thank you. It took me a while to unmute myself, but Phil wishes that function was in play all the time. It is really hard that, both of these individuals are doing, a very full-time job, and this is an additional full-time job. So the amount of work and effort they're putting in is astronomical and absolutely incredible. But I think it is slower going because there are so many other things pulling at them during the day. And, because you have to be in a specific kind of mindset to do this kind of thing. So the dedicated time is actually what would be really, really amazing.
Yeah, and I can have an offline, non-Zoom conversation with these two about what's real. We've talked. We have some draft timelines already. now that they've had a chance to actually do some more work on it for things that, they presented to you today, what's a real timeline? How long is it going to take? And, we talked about having a sense of urgency to get this done, because we do need a sense of urgency, but we have two people doing the work. And how do we change either that, or how do we get them more time to do the work, and make sure that we can get this in a usable rollout? Let's go over the next couple of years. We want to have this in action. I would love to say in the next 6 months, but I know it's not real. It's a lot of work. So,
Well, I feel secure that a lot of the stuff that they're going to be writing down is happening, right? It's going on in the classroom every day. Just from observing my grandkids in school and what they're learning. The trick is to get it all down on paper. And I think that's where they need the time, a day, they get into that mind frame and can work on it all day. Not saying specifically a day, but you know what I mean. You can't sit down and do it for a half hour and then
Right.
go teach a class,
Right.
So I think we really need to help create that time, create the time that it can happen.
we can talk about some potential release time. And I was joking when I said 28 hours a day, because I mean, that's the issue, is that how do we keep the urgency without burning two people out and making them want to run for the hills? We don't want that to happen. But we also want to make sure this continues. And short of hiring assistants for them, or having them clone themselves, I think time is probably the most critical thing. And how, whether it's coverage, and it's probably more on the Erica side, because this is part of Kristen's role as a literacy coach, where right now is Erica's a 7th grade math teacher. It is her stipend. And so, but her stipend covers a reasonable number of hours. What we're asking her to do is well outside of a reasonable number of hours. And so we need to take that into consideration and figure out, is there time in the school day where we can provide some structured coverage, so our students aren't missing something and they're getting good support and teaching still, but Erica's having some time beyond the 20 minutes here, 20 minutes there. That doesn't work. We know it doesn't work. So.
And we also have to keep in mind that when a teacher is absent from her class or their class, there's planning involved, there's oversight involved, then there's any work that they've done. Plus, because so much there are remote learners as part of the 7th grade team, it's just a compilation of many duties all at one time.
Yep. That's why cloning would be a really good thing. So we need the science portion here.
But the cloning goes along with the 28-hour day.
It does. It does. Unfortunately, you're
Yeah.
right. So I will have a conversation with them about the timelines that we shared and what's real, and how do we get the ball rolling, and what's our first spot to try to get some approval done, and get things going. And I think, to your point, there is a lot of these things happening, but there's also a lot of things that are not happening yet. And that are things that we need to make adjustments, and we know that, which is why we're doing the work we're doing.
Okay, very good.
Any other final thoughts? So maybe what I'll do then is I will have a conversation with Kristen and Erica about kind of next steps and moving forward, and maybe set a checkpoint for this specific committee to meet again, just to get an update from them. Where are they at? How are things going? And maybe give them another month to work. Where are we at? And maybe get a more realistic timeline. Like, what can we do? Do we need to make a commitment to? And I know this may sound crazy because it's beyond budget season, but You know, do we need to be creative about the number of hours these ladies can work this summer or want to work this summer? Or, you know, how are we going to do it? That's what I need to have a conversation with them about. So, all right.
Could you, Kristen and Erica, would you be comfortable bringing in a couple other people in the summer to help? If you know, that depending on your comfort level, that could help you. Just a thought, just kind of throwing that idea out there. You don't even have to answer, just a thought.
You know, I'm thinking about what you're saying, for sure. You know,
Even if you,
we're always, you know, we make more, you know, gains. What's the saying? I think Mary Kay probably even put it in one of your emails in the morning. We're all, you know, we get more accomplished together. It just depends on what the task is. And if everybody on, you know, it's, and what the knowledge level is of the person that you're working with.
Right.
yeah. And if you, even people from different grade levels that are familiar with the material, and you give them kind of a kind of a template or so. Just a thought.
Yeah, it's a good thought.
Eric, are you good?
I'm good.
All right. Any other comments or questions from the board?
Thank you both for all your hard work, and thank you for sharing it with us. It looks great.
Thank you for your support.
Thanks.
We appreciate it.
Thank you for unmuting me. Yes, thank you for all your hard work. You're on the right track as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I think the idea here is how do we keep things moving forward? We've had this conversation. So, Herb, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I appreciate the work that is being done, and any way the board can support you, just let Superintendent Stevens know, and he'll relay that information to us.
Thank you.
Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Keep it up.
Thank you.
All right. So thanks everyone for your time. It is 4:07 p.m. I will at least see Ann later on tonight. Herb, you joining tonight as well? The school building committee's meeting later on tonight, so get the prep for that one now. So
Yeah.
adjourn at 4:07 p.m. I'm going to stop recording. Maybe.